Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for joining this radio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about how the NGOs, they're back out sort of in force, hustling for donations out on the street, hanging outside of supermarkets and in shopping malls and on busy streets and things like that, trying to get donations. Now, the one that certainly near the supermarket I went into a few days ago, there's a young guy from the third world. His English is passable. There's a young guy there, and he's out hustling for donations for homeless children. Now, there's pictures there of children in desperate circumstances to pull on the heartstrings and the wallet strings and that sort of stuff, and so that's propaganda straight out of the gate, and I've got a bit of a problem with that. I mean, calmly and clearly use facts to illustrate or define the situation, and on that basis you ask for donations, then assure people that money will go directly to those kids in need. That would be my approach, or something that would make me comfortable to give a donation. Maybe that's a better way of putting it. But the young guy he's certainly not bright, and I'm probably a little retarded, I would think. But they filled him full of propaganda, and very emotional propaganda at that. And he's been taught to pick certain people. So if he sees someone that has got multicolored hair, looks like a lesbian or an angry feminist or something like that, covered in tattoos and so on, he's been told to those are the people you target, people who are angry with their own lives and who hate society and hate everything. They'll be the most likely to believe the propaganda you spin, no matter how outrageous it is. So I watched this for a little bit and saw that he's not bright enough, I think, to do it himself, but he'd been trained to do it, and he was just picking every pink-haired lesbian that went by and that sort of stuff. So I was watching this and was there for a few minutes and had pedaled my push bike there actually to. So I was about to ride off, and he spotted me, and I was kind of sort of middle distance away. He spotted me and asked, would I make a donation? And so I asked for some details, and he claimed that the 2 million Australian children are living on the street at the moment. And now that's absolutely, I mean, wow. That wow is the only response you could have to something like that, because assuming children means under the age of 18 or under the age of 18, then that's like close on that's probably more than a third, if not 40+% of children are therefore living on the street in Australia now. That's widespread. That's equal to the homelessness in Africa and in civil countries in civil war and that sort of thing. But it happens in a first world country. It's 40%. So I sort of tried to you sure about this? Yeah, 40%. Whoa, give generously. So drilling sort of down and pestering him for more details. And you must have been to training sessions. So what did they tell you there? And I'm trying to tease out as much information as I can, because it's blatantly propaganda and blatantly false what they've told this young kid to say, assuming he's got it right. Again, he's no genius, but when I say kid, he's probably early 20s or something. But he sort of kept on and then went into further detail. But the linchpin came when the definition of homelessness came up, because how they define these things is where the lie is. So the definition that he's been told to use, or that they're using in that particular NGO, is any child in Australia that doesn't have its own bedroom. So it's got to have its own room, its own bedroom in a permanent residence. So, so if it's in government residence, for example, that's considered not permanent because the person doesn't own it or have a lease under their own. So they've invented this and just made guesses and estimates as to whatever the rest might be. But their intention has been to deliver an absolute, sort of shocker of a fact. Did you know that 2 million children are living on the streets starving? They could be in the clutches of Hitler. And this is the sort of message that they're putting out there, or the propaganda they're putting out there. Now, by that definition, then, say a household that's got, I don't know, 3 bedrooms, and you've got the folks and 3 children, for example, and 2 of those children have to share a bedroom because there's only 3 bedrooms. Then they're defining that those 2 children, by their definition, are homeless because they don't have their own room. So it's not hard to push up the numbers there and come up with a truly dramatic figure, which is what they've done. So when you actually look at the figures, if you look at real homelessness among children, it's usually between the ages of, say, 15 and 17, and they've run away from home. They've argued with the folks and this sort of thing. Now, it doesn't mean there isn't family conflict. There is. The idea that then they move to the second stage, where particularly any girl that runs away from home is because she's being sexually assaulted by an evil straight white male. So now, if you look at the amount of sort of straight white males in the country, and you look at then that can't be right. So they're inventing numbers again. If a boy runs away, or a male child runs away from home, it's because he's being beaten to death by the evil straight white male. So because maybe he's homosexual or something like that. So they've got all these fantasies, the ideological fantasies that they cook up, and then they jumble them all up and throw them all around and come up with a magic figure that I think they invent. In fact, I was convinced they invented that there's 2 million children living homeless in Australia, which would be, again, 40% plus of children in the country. So that's clearly absurd. It's clearly idiotic. So talking to the young guy, I sort of tried to talk him through it. It's okay, well, there are this many children in the whole of the country. How many homeless people do you know personally that are outside of your work? Say people you may have met through your NGO activism. And he freely admits he knows none. So, all right, well, if 4 out of every 10 kids is homeless, don't you think you'd have met at least one, at some point outside of your work or outside of your NGO employment? And he stops for a minute and he asks, well, I suppose I would have, yeah. Well, if 4 out of every 10, you must have met one. Now, if you haven't met any that are homeless, and I haven't met any are homeless, then the chances are it can't be 4 out of 10. And now we can all agree that there is homelessness, and we all agree that there's family breakdowns and family conflict. Okay, we can all accept that. But the idea that it's always a straight white man beating up on a boy or having sex with a girl, that can't be right either. So by stepping him through it, and slowly, and it took a bit of patience, then he started to, oh, hey, yeah, that actually doesn't add up. And so I said, look, these NGOs, the idea of collecting money for homeless people, and if that money goes directly to them to genuinely help them, I'm all for it. I mean, no one would support that more than me. But this idea that it's 2 million and you've got to give to this very politically activist NGO that somehow manages to find vast sums of money to ensure that illegal aliens come into the West. So they're just political activists. They're not helping kids. That's bullshit. The money you give to them would go on any political activist cause. And I don't like the way they use the manufactured plight of young children in Australia to collect money that they intend to use for political activism. I've got a real problem with that. So I said to the kid, they're filling your head full of bullshit, and then they're sending you out on the street to collect money under what I believe is false pretenses. So So anyway, that was it. But these scam artists are all around, and if you get the time, and you may not have the time, but if you get the time when you're going past one to really look, what are the facts that are they using, and importantly, what definitions they're using, because you can bet your last nickel that they're using definitions or inventing definitions that remarkably inflate the alleged plight or the alleged situation of, like you see it with the transgender community as an example. If you don't give us what we want, we'll all commit suicide. It'll be your fault. You did it, you fucking Nazi fascist Hitler. I mean, that sort of thing. And this is the same rationale and reasoning that they're using with this. If they were genuinely collecting money for genuinely homeless children who, through misadventure and misfortune, had found themselves to be out on the street, then I would be all for it and would happily donate it and donate generously. Now, other things he mentioned, that there are various hostels around that are full. So he claims all the time. I'm not sure I believe that, but anyway, let's just assume that's the case. And I think there are 10,000 in Sydney or Greater Sydney. I think there are 10,000 rooms or beds or facilities. They can take in 10,000 people, 10,000 children around, and they're always full. So he sort of pointed to that, or has been told to point to that as an indication of how chronic the situation is. But in these places, they won't give you a bed, and they'll give you money and a bed and food and that sort of thing. They won't give it to you unless you say you're being abused. So you can't say, I just had a fight with my parents and they wouldn't let me go out to the nightclub, and I wanted $100 to go and they wouldn't give it to me. So I told them that I hated them and I ran out the door and they can get fucked, and I just want to stay somewhere just to make them suffer, just to make them wonder where I am and if I'm safe, and just to stick it up them so next time they'll fucking give me that $100 when I want it. They can't say that. So they have to say, no, my dad kicked the shit out of me. Or if it's a girl, no, my dad just he won't stop fucking me. That's it. He's a dirty fucking lecherous pedophile bastard, and that's why I ran away, and that's why you have to give me all these free goodies. That they have to tick that box on the form, otherwise they won't get any benefits or any handouts or giveaways or the nice clean sheets and the nice bed for the night and that sort of thing. So this has there's an over-representation. I knew some people where the daughter was always was very very socially active with boys her age, or maybe a few years older, but very socially active from say the age of 14 perhaps, and her studies went to shit at school, and she's going to a private school, and she was constantly having these dramatic confrontations with her parents, and her, once she heard about that you could go to a place that would give you a room and give you money and give you this, give you that, and food and everything, she's like, oh wow, and she ruthlessly used it as a device to make her parents suffer, and she managed to stay there for days on end, and so her parents would be absolutely beside themselves, wondering where she was and if she was all right, or if she was lying dead in a ditch or something, absolutely out of their minds with worry. And she thought, the girl thought this was a great, good. I'm teaching those bastards not to give me any back chat and so on. So that was, but that every night that girl stays there, she's ticking the box that she's getting beaten and sexually abused and everything else you can imagine. So much so, by the way, given that it was such a frequent thing, that a team of police and detectives went around to interview the father, because must be something bad here. That's how heavy it got. So and all over a power struggle. This was nothing. It was just a power struggle, and her wanting to show them that she could do what she wanted when she wanted, and they could get fucked. So these sort of things are happening all the time. This is not homelessness. Far from it. This is just maybe the parents didn't handle as well as they could or should have. But it's just a kid with a bad attitude. That's all it is. So when you look at this sort of situation as totality, then I don't. It's nowhere near as bad as they say, and I do not like the misrepresentation they use in order to gather donations from private citizens, saying, well, look, you have to show how much you care, and if you don't care, you're Hitler. I just don't accept that. You've been Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.